Welcome to the Adorama Live Theater here at CBS in New York. I think this is probably the coolest thing we have in the entire company is this performance space. And inside the performance space is, if it's possible for an inanimate object to have a soul, you're looking at it right here. This guitar is the stuff of legend, to the point where we have a room full of people who just wanted to be in a room with this guitar and maybe to touch the guitar or maybe even play it. I'm going to, if you don't already know what it is, save the best part from the guy who can explain better than I can just why this is glowing with legend. We have from Gurnsey's Auction House in New York City, the founder and the president, Arlan Ettinger. Say hello.
Wayne, nice to be here.
Thank you for coming along. And, you know, when you auction off guitars, and I'm sure you've done that a lot over the years, I'm sure you're going to have to work hard to try to build it up and market it and make sure everybody knows exactly how important it is. With this guitar, all you need to do is say its name. And those who know what it is.
This indeed is, you ready? Drum roll. The Wolf. Jerry Garcia's most iconic guitar, most beloved instrument, sort of the embodiment of Jerry now 20 years after his death. It's quite something.
I'm hearing the strains of Sugary as I look at this guitar right now. And I'm thinking that when this came along in 1973, nothing like this had happened before. A guitar like this had not been on planet Earth. He'd made a couple of adjustments through his people to make this sound what you hear when you put on so many Grateful Dead albums or hear the live shows. Can you describe a little bit of that?
The noodling, I don't know, you sound more knowledgeable about that than I am, but this was made for him by a luthier named Doug Irwin, who had a special talent. And we sold it 15 years ago on behalf of Doug, who had hit on tough times. When Jerry passed away, Doug was named in Jerry's will to get Wolf back, and Tiger, the other guitar Doug made for Jerry, known by the images that are in the wood there, a picture of a wolf and a picture of a tiger. Wolf was played during the heart of Jerry's career. Tiger came in towards the end of the career. But going back to Doug Irwin, he was homeless at the time Jerry passed away, but Jerry remembered him in his will. Except a glitch came up, and the management of the surviving members of the Grateful Dead contested the will, claiming that although Jerry certainly played the instruments, they really were property of the band. And it seems sort of heartless that these guys were all very successful and the homeless guy was homeless, but a pair of aging Deadhead attorneys took up Doug Irwin's case pro bono and defended his inheritance in court over several years and finally won. And so the guitars went to Doug. Gurnsey's was chosen to sell them. We did, what I think it's fair to say, a pretty wild and crazy auction at Studio 54 with Wolf and Tiger and a few hundred other things that we were able to gather from Jerry's old girlfriends and manager. And but Wolf and Tiger were the stars of the show. They sold that night for about $1 million apiece, which at the time were world records for the most money ever spent for any guitar ever sold.
I think I read it was double the previous high price.
More than double, yeah. Eric Clapton's Blackie had been the prior record at around $400,000, so at $1 million, it was a big leap up. Tiger went to Jim Irsay of the Indianapolis Colts, the owner of the Colts NFL football team. Jim has a famous big collection of guitars, while Wolf here was sold to a man named Dan Pritzker, musician, philanthropist, and good all-around guy.
That's the Chicago Pritzkers?
The Chicago Pritzkers, although Dan lives out west. And Dan didn't want his name used for the longest time, so he never revealed who purchased it. But after about a decade, he decided he would loan it out once in a while for charitable functions, and he did, and that's when his name became revealed. Over the years, Dan and I became friends, and then about 3 or 4 months ago, Dan called, and he said, frankly, he was very concerned about what changes were going on in our new government and directions the new government was taking and wanted to do something meaningful with the guitar, just something genuinely good. And with that, he asked us to take it back and sell it and give all the proceeds to the Southern Poverty Law Center, which for nearly half a century has been fighting racism and poverty and hate groups like the KKK and neo-Nazis. And it took about 2 seconds to say, right on. I mean, that was a wonderful thing he did. We happen to be supporters of Southern poverty, coincidentally, and didn't need our arm twisted to say, let's do this. At that point, we reached out to a terrific guy named Peter Shapiro, who heads Relics magazine and has been the producer of Grateful Dead shows and, among other things, owns the terrific Brooklyn Bowl right here in Williamsburg. And so it was quickly determined that that would be the setting for this pretty unprecedented one-lot auction that we're conducting a week from today, May 31st, in the evening at the Brooklyn Bowl.
So what you're saying is this is such an important, iconic piece that it's the only lot. You would not want to have other items there.
You know, it was great back in 2002. And by the way, I mentioned Doug Irwin. This was the first guitar he ever made. It has his name on the back, D. Irwin 001. So it has history every way you turn. But it was such a special occasion. At this time, at this divisive time in our country, when something like this can only generate good, that to dilute the sale by putting other things in. We've had plenty of offers of good things, and we appreciate the offers, but we wanted to keep it to this. But that doesn't mean it's going to be a 1 or 2 minute evening, because it'll only take 1 or 2 minutes to sell the guitar. But it's going to be surrounded by hours of great music, about 20 terrific musicians, John Scofield, Billy Martin, Nels Cline, Joe Russo, and many others. All are volunteering their time to play that evening. It should be quite an occasion. Trixie Garcia, Jerry's daughter, is flying in from the West Coast. Morris Dees, the founder of Southern Poverty, will be coming up from the South, and it should be quite a night. We had tickets available for the public. Normally, we don't have tickets for an auction, but this was a special occasion, so tickets were put out there, about 600 of them, and they sold out in 2 minutes.
Is that to limit the crowd or to raise money for the Southern Poverty Law Center?
Both. But for anyone who may be hearing this that wants to get on the bidding of Wolf, we'll always have a place for you in the...
I'm looking for hands out there in the Adorama Live studio audience.
Never raise your hand in front of an auctioneer. Remember that.
It's a week from tonight.
May 31st. It's a Wednesday night. And gates open at 7 o'clock. Music starts at 8. The guitar will be sold around 9:30. One doesn't need to be there to bid. Normally, in today's world, you can bid at auction in person, on the telephone, or on the internet. Internet bidding is playing a very large role in auctions.
But it's not as fun.
It's not as fun, and for this object, it's so special that it's simply either you're there or you're on the phone. But anybody interested should go to Gurnsey's site or just call us here in Manhattan, and we can talk about getting one in on the bidding.
I'm going to ask you the obvious question.
How much?
What do you think?
You know, it sold for just about $1 million many years ago. But predicting what something will bring at auction, I suppose if I was good at it, I would have some hair left on my head. It's an impossible task, and there's many sleepless nights wondering what something will sell. There are surprises both ways. We sold a baseball for $3 million. Who knew? It was a time.
What baseball was that?
That was a ball that today, if you would resell it, probably would bring about enough to get a good ham and cheese sandwich, because that ball was Mark McGwire's 70th home run, which at the time it was hit, set a world record for most home runs in a season. The prior world record set only months earlier by a much larger competitor. I won't say their name, Sotheby's. Their record had been $126,000, set only months earlier for a ball that everybody agreed was the best baseball on the planet. It was
So
best.
what happened?
It was Babe Ruth's first home run, hit as a New York Yankee on the opening day of Yankee Stadium. So you had the best of the best of the best, and that ball brought a record at the time of $126,000, and the headlines in the Daily News the next morning said, "This is a record that will never be topped, the 126,000." But 3 months later, we sold McGuire's ball for $3 million.
How do you make that kind of transition from hundreds of thousands or 100,000 to 3 million?
Good looks.
No doubt.
No doubt. You just get the word out. You just let people be aware. You don't limit your promotion to simply baseball collectors, because you never know who buyers are going to be. So if you get the word out globally, then hopefully good things will follow.
Sold for $1 million 15 years ago. Bidding,
who knows this time?
Does bidding start at a certain number? How do you work that exactly?
We can't see it going for less than $1 million.
Okay.
So from a practical perspective, I think it's going to be a 7-figure amount.
Okay.
If it gets beyond a certain level, then there's a write-off that comes with it as well. And because beyond, if you think of it as having an appraised value of $1 million, anything bid beyond that can be written off, which is good if someone can use it, I suppose.
Not that it needs the hype or the promotion, but you mentioned Mr. Irwin, and I did take a note. In 1977, at Jerry Garcia's request, Irwin installed what's described as an innovative buffered effect loop in Wolf. Now, my buddy Don Bogut from my high school class, who plays the guitar, is a huge Jerry fan, called me.
Up here.
He saw it on, come on, Don, come on up here. Saw on Facebook that we were going to be doing this and said, I'm going to drive in from Jersey. What time? So I think he broke every traffic law. Are you going to be shy and not come up here, Don? He's going to be shy. But I want to give you props because you told me exactly where to look for this nugget that Irwin installed this innovative buffered effect loop in Wolf, which, and this is a quote from Jerry Garcia. And I love this because it shows what a technical guy Jerry Garcia was. Quote, "It allows me to have all my effects pedals wired to the guitar and bypass them all with a switch." And there's a switch down there between those two inputs. I use a stereo cord, and the signal goes from the pickups to the tone controls and pickup switch. The signal then goes through the effects back into a network box and up the B side, and that's only, that rest was on page 2, which I left upstairs. But you get the idea. It was an innovative sound, and when you listen...
I knew all that. I just didn't want to...
Well, you don't want to show off. I get it. Jonathan Clark, you're not shy. Come on up here for a second, would you please? Jonathan Clark is the biggest, youngest deadhead that I know. He was born the year that Don and I graduated from high school. I just found that out this morning. I won't hold it against you. Tell me what this guitar means to you.
Well, I mean, you think of some of the iconic moments. I mean, when they played in Egypt in '78, something that the band was very excited about, right in front of the pyramids. This is what guitar he was using. And then he brought it back at the end of his career because he started to experiment with a lot of technical and synthesizers that he would plug through the guitar, and this is the guitar that he used. So he obviously had a huge love for it, and it meant a lot to him. So I think that in effect it meant a lot to Dead fans. And you know, you see some of the iconic pictures. It's one of the few guitars you see Jerry with black hair playing, and then you see Jerry with gray hair playing.
I hear the sound, the distinctive sound of Jerry Garcia's guitar, but I would never be able to tell you which guitar it was. Are there people there who can make that, who can hear the distinction?
Oh, certainly.
You think so?
Yeah, I think Deadheads are a pretty invested group, and there's a lot of points I think that you could tell that when he's playing certain guitars.
All right. Well, what a sweet sound it's been, and I really would love to see a lot of money raised for the Southern Poverty Law Center. It certainly is a cause that fits right in with the heart and soul and spirit of the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia. Yeah. I'll be anxious to see what happens a week from tonight.
Join us. Be there.
Okay, thank you for the invite. And that's going to be where again?
Brooklyn Bowl in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
What time?
Doors open at 7 o'clock. Music starts at 8. The guitar will be sold around 9:30.
All right. You can go to the Guernsey's Auction House website for more details.
For sure.
All right. And you started Guernsey's 40 years ago. And are the president.
And I'm only 38, so figure that one out.
Arlan Ettinger, a pleasure. Thank you so
Wayne,
much.
Thank you.